Okay, first let's look at the starter box. So, starter box has a microphone with a connector at the end. All right, you're going to want to mount that on the flagpole where the starter sits or stands. Okay, this connector feeds in to the top receptacle here. It can only go in one way. It's keyed. It has a key, so you can't put it in upside down, backwards, or sideways. So it goes in. Make sure it seats. Screw in the connector. Okay. Now we have our external horn, which goes on the other side of the flagpole on the start end. Okay. The end of the cable is here. Okay. Make sure you plug it into the lane speaker receptacle. Okay. Here you can see it has an auxiliary speaker and a lane speaker. You want to put it in the lane speaker because the lane speaker volume is controlled on this. The volume of the speaker at the front of the starter box here is controlled by the master control. Okay, the main volume. This one is controlling the front, and this one controls the one across the pool. That gives the starter the flexibility to adjust the speakers so that he can have the right volume for the swimmers. Okay, so in a worst case scenario, this is all you need. You just need a starter box and the horn and the microphone to work. Worst case scenario, use stopwatches and do the meet with just stopwatches. Okay. Now, let's hook up the starter box to the timing system. All right, so here we have the spool. It has the two connectors at the end. Okay, one connector goes here. And see how it's keyed and it says that this is ground. So make sure that ground goes into the ground hole. Okay, there's another red hole here. Don't ever use that one. Just use these first two. You can see the picture. There's an actual picture there that shows the connector. Put the ground in the black hole. Okay. Then on the other side, we're going to plug that into the console. Okay, so the other side here plugs into the start input. You can see that there's a picture. Once again, it shows that the ground is black and the black ground goes into there. Okay, so we've set up the starter, the horn. Now we've got the start cable that goes into the console. All right. Now, next, we want to power up the console. So here is this power supply, which has this funny-looking connector here at the end. You can see. Don't use the one that's at the CSMS already that runs that clock because it doesn't give us the right voltage and it doesn't work right. So use the one I've given you. Plugs in here. Make sure it snaps in tight. Okay. Now, what I don't have here is the scoreboard, but you'll see that the scoreboard, the way it's plugged into the back of the console that's there at the CSMS to run the scoreboard for practices, it's a stereo jack and it can plug into either J2 or J3. Okay. One thing to note is that sometimes if it's seated too far in or it's not seated far enough, it won't show up on the clock. When you plug it in, it might show like lanes 1, 2, or 3. Just kind of wiggle it a little bit and it should start to work. That's of course only after the console is turned on. So this is where the scoreboard plugs in. Here you can see it says scoreboard. Okay. The next thing is hooking up to the deck harness. So you can see that it has this pin structure here. Okay? There's a right way and a wrong way to put it in. The top pin on every connector, when you're plugging it either into the console or into the daisy chain of the deck harness, the top pin always goes into the red hole. Don't ever turn it around and try to jam it in. Okay? In fact, it won't. You can see that the spacing between the pins is off. You'll really have to mash it hard in order to plug it in wrong. People have tried doing that and then they ruin the whole damn thing. So please don't plug it in the wrong way. The top pin always plugs in to the red hole. Now you'll see on the back of the console there are two sets of places where the deck harness can plug in. We want to plug it into the top one. Okay. The bottom is if we were running 50 meter or if we had live touch pads at the other end. So this is the top one is where the connector goes in for touch pads at the start end. Okay. Now another connector that needs to go into the console is the serial connection that connects the computer to read the results from into Meat Manager to publish the events into the console or upload their events into the console, but also to pull the times from the console into the computer. So we are going to just run a simple system where you're going to have one PC to run the Meat Manager, and then you're going to have to run the console from the keypad, and I'll kind of explain that later. So this connector, the serial connector, which is coming from the computer, needs to plug into, and I got it labeled here, goes into the results port. So the results port is right down there under the deck harness cable, J6. You plug it in. All right. Now, unfortunately, the nuts are gone that the serial connector screws into. So just make sure that it's seated as good as you can. It should stay. There shouldn't be any problems. Okay. So the console is wired up. It has power. It has the start. It has the deck harness in it, and then it's got the serial cable that runs from the computer.